The silence in the penthouse was absolute, a physical presence that seemed to absorb the very concept of sound. It was a stark contrast to the world below, a city pulsing with the frantic, commercial energy of Christmas Eve. From her floor-to-ceiling window, Ilara Vance observed it all, a queen surveying a kingdom she had built but could no longer feel. The panoramic view of the skyline, usually a source of pride, a tapestry of her victories, now felt like the bars of a beautifully appointed cage. At 38, she was the undisputed CEO of Ethelgard Industries, a name synonymous with ruthless efficiency and staggering innovation. She had everything the world told her to want: wealth that could span generations, power that made titans of industry nervous, and a reputation that was both her armor and her identity. Yet, on this night, the penthouse was just a collection of expensive things. The minimalist furniture, curated by a world-renowned designer, held no warmth. The abstract art on the walls, worth more than most houses, conveyed only a cold, intellectual emptiness. A single, perfectly decorated white fir tree stood in the corner, its uniform ornaments and cool white lights looking more like a corporate display than a symbol of joy. It had been put up by her assistant, a task on a checklist, much like the catered meal for one that sat untouched on the dining table. Her phone, a sleek, black device that was an extension of her hand, lay dormant on the marble countertop. No calls from family, for she had none. No messages from friends, for true friendship was a casualty of her ascent. The invitations had poured in, of course, glittering charity galas, exclusive parties hosted by business associates, but they were all transactions, networks of power disguised as social gatherings. The thought of donning another designer gown and exchanging hollow pleasantries was more suffocating than the silence. A memory, unbidden and sharp, pierced her detachment. It was of a small, cluttered house, the air thick with the scent of pine and gingerbread. The sound of laughter, real and unpolished, and the warm, encompassing hug of her mother. It was a lifetime ago, a life before ambition became her sole companion and tragedy severed her last ties to warmth. She shook her head, physically dispelling the ghost. Sentiment was a luxury she could not afford, it was a crack in the foundation, and her entire empire was built on an unyielding base. With a sigh that was lost in the vastness of the room, she walked to the window, her reflection a pale, elegant ghost superimposed over the city's lights. She was a woman who commanded boardrooms with a glance, yet she couldn't command a simple feeling of contentment on a night meant for togetherness. The city twinkled, a million points of light, each one representing a story, a family, a connection she did not have. She was alone, utterly and completely, in the one place that was supposed to be her ultimate sanctuary. The gilded cage, for all its splendor, was still a cage. The oppressive quiet was finally broken by the soft, mechanical hum of the private elevator ascending to her floor. Ilara's spine straightened instinctively. No one was expected. Her security was impeccable, an unscheduled arrival was an impossibility. A flicker of alarm, cold and professional, cut through her melancholy. Had the board decided on some dramatic, Christmas Eve intervention? Was it a disgruntled competitor? Her mind, a weapon honed by years of corporate warfare, began running through scenarios, her body tensing for a confrontation. The elevator doors slid open with a whisper. But it was not a suit-clad rival or a team of directors that stood there. It was a young woman, perhaps in her mid-20s, clutching a large, insulated delivery bag. She was shrouded in a worn winter coat, a bright, hand-knitted scarf wrapped several times around her neck, and a beanie pulled low over her ears. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold, and she looked around the cavernous entrance foyer with wide, apprehensive eyes. This was Lena, the delivery driver from a gourmet service Ilara's assistant used. Relief, followed by a surge of irritation, washed over Ilara. The delivery was made hours ago, she stated, her voice cooler than she intended, the CEO tone she used to dismiss incompetent junior executives. Lena jumped slightly, her gaze snapping to Alara. I know, Ms. Vance. I delivered it. She shifted her weight nervously. It's just my car. It's an old junker, and it finally gave up the ghost. Right in your underground parking lot. The tow truck won't be here for at least an hour, and it's freezing down there, and the security guard said I couldn't wait in the lobby. Her words tumbled out in a rushed, anxious stream. She hugged the delivery bag to her chest like a shield. I'm so sorry to bother you. I know you're busy. Alara observed her. This was an inconvenience, a wrinkle in the perfectly pressed fabric of her evening. The efficient thing to do would be to call down to security, order them to find a place for her to wait, and close the door. But as she looked at the young woman shivering, embarrassed, and utterly out of place amidst the million-dollar view, something unexpected happened. The sheer, mundane humanity of the situation was so alien to her sterile environment that it gave her pause. This wasn't a business problem, it was a human one. Lena, misinterpreting the silence as anger, began to back away. I'll just go wait in the car. It's fine, really. I'm so sorry for disturbing you. Wait. The word left Alara's lips before her mind had fully processed the decision. She saw the genuine distress on Lena's face, a raw emotion so different from the masked agendas she dealt with daily. In that moment, the lonely CEO and the stranded delivery girl were oddly parallel, both stuck, both waiting for a night to end. A bizarre, impulsive thought formed. It's Christmas Eve, Alara said, her voice losing its sharp edge. You can't wait in a broken-down car. She stepped back, opening the door wider. You can wait here. Lena's eyes widened in disbelief. Here in your apartment? Oh, no, I couldn't possibly. It's not a request, Alara said, the command returning to her voice, though it was softer now. Come in. The invitation was issued. The first crack in her fortress wall had been made. Lena stepped into the penthouse as if walking on a floor of eggshells, her worn boots making no sound on the polished concrete. She looked around, not with greed, but with a kind of awestruck disbelief, as if she had wandered into a museum after hours. Her gaze lingered on the cityscape, the minimalist fireplace, the starkly beautiful tree. It's very quiet, she said softly, immediately blushing as if she had uttered a profound insult. Alara almost smiled. Yes. It is. She gestured vaguely towards the living area. You can sit. The next hour unfolded in a series of small, awkward, yet profound moments. Lena, after much nervous insistence, revealed her delivery bag contained not just Alara's uneaten meal, but her own Christmas dinner, a modest container of homemade stew and a slightly lopsided, store-bought fruitcake. The contrast between the catered haute cuisine and this simple, personal meal was a silent testament to their worlds. Driven by a politeness ingrained in her, and perhaps a desire to fill the silence, Lena offered to share. The gesture was so genuine, so devoid of calculation, that Alara, for the second time that night, found herself agreeing to something illogical. They sat at opposite ends of the vast sofa, the two containers of food on the coffee table between them like artifacts from different civilizations. Lena, initially terrified, began to relax in the face of Alara's quiet observation. She didn't pry or ask personal questions. Instead, she spoke in little bursts, filling the silence with harmless things. She talked about her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Gable, for whom she shoveled snow. She mentioned her dream of going back to school for graphic design, a dream currently funded by delivery gigs and late-night shifts. She spoke of the city at Christmas, not from a penthouse view, but from the street level: the Salvation Army bell ringers, the frantic last-minute shoppers, the way the snow looked on the old cobblestone streets in the historic district. Ilara listened. She said little, but she listened in a way she hadn't listened to anyone in years. This wasn't a pitch or a report, it was alive, unvarnished and real. She watched the emotions play on Lena's face: the pride in her independence, the wistfulness for her dream, the simple kindness in her stories. There was no strategy here, no hidden motive. It was disarming. At one point, Lena glanced at the perfect, sterile Christmas tree and, with a hesitant smile, said, "It's very elegant. But it looks a little lonely." Before Ilara could respond, Lena rummaged in her large bag and pulled out a small, clumsily crafted ornament made of painted pasta and glitter. "My little cousin made this for me. It's silly, I know, but maybe it could use a friend." She held it out, a tiny, garish, and utterly beautiful offering of imperfection. Ilara looked from the homemade ornament to Lena's hopeful face. This was the moment to reassert boundaries, to decline and retreat behind her walls. But she didn't. She gave a slow, single nod. Lena beamed, walked over to the tree, and found a small, bare spot for the pasta star. It looked absurd and completely out of place, and yet, for the first time all evening, the tree looked like it belonged to someone. A faint, almost forgotten warmth began to seep into the cold, silent room. The tow truck company called, their message flashing on Ilara's phone screen. Due to the holiday and the weather, it would be another 2 hours, maybe 3. Lena received the same message on her own cheap, cracked phone. Her shoulders slumped in resignation, but she quickly tried to mask her disappointment. "I should probably call a rideshare. I've taken up enough of your evening." "They won't come to this district on Christmas Eve for a short fare," Ilara stated, not unkindly, but as a simple fact. "And the subway from here is a mile's walk." She looked at Lena, truly looked at her. The young woman was exhausted, her earlier nervous energy depleted. The thought of her venturing back out into the cold, to wait indefinitely for a tow, only to then navigate a complicated journey home to what was likely a small, empty apartment, felt suddenly and profoundly wrong. Another impulsive decision was forming, this one even more monumental than the last. The initial, temporary shelter was morphing into something else. The silence of the penthouse, which had been so oppressive just hours before, now felt different. Lena's presence had not broken it, but had given it a new texture. It was no longer empty, it was companionable. "The roads are getting worse," Ilara said, her voice measured, as if she were presenting a boardroom proposal. "It's impractical for you to leave now. And, it's Christmas." She paused, the words feeling foreign on her tongue. "You should stay." Lena stared, her mouth slightly agape. "Stay, you mean, overnight?" "Just for the night," Ilara clarified, the CEO part of her already structuring the arrangement. "There is a guest suite. It's fully furnished. You can leave first thing in the morning when your car is sorted." She made it sound like a logistical solution, stripping it of any emotional weight. But the offer itself was deeply, fundamentally emotional. Lena was speechless. The generosity was so far beyond her expectations that she seemed unable to process it. "Ms. Vance, I can't accept that. It's too much." "You have a choice," Ilara said, a hint of her old steel returning. "You can accept a bed in a warm room, or you can spend the night in a cold garage waiting for a tow truck that may not come. The decision seems straightforward." She turned and walked towards the hallway, not waiting for an answer, her posture leaving no room for further argument. "I'll show you to the room." As she led a stunned Lena down a corridor to a suite as impeccably designed and sterile as the rest of the penthouse, Ilara felt a strange stirring within her. It was the ghost of a feeling, the echo of a time when her home had been a place for guests, for family, for life. She was allowing a stranger, a virtual unknown, into her most private sanctum. It was a risk, a breach of every protocol she lived by. And yet, as she heard Lena's soft, grateful thank you from the doorway, the only thing she felt was the quiet retreat of the crushing loneliness that had plagued her all evening. The fortress had been breached, and to her surprise, the world had not ended. The following hours felt like existing in a strange, parallel universe. Ilara retreated to her study, attempting to find solace in the familiar terrain of financial reports and market analyses. But the numbers blurred on the screen. Her concentration was fractured, her mind continually drifting to the presence in the guest room down the hall. She was hyper-aware of every faint sound, the soft click of a door, the distant rush of water through the pipes as Lena took a shower. After a time, she ventured out to the kitchen for a glass of water and found Lena there, not rummaging or snooping, but simply standing by the large window, looking out at the city now adorned with a gentle, falling snow. She had changed into comfortable, worn sweatpants and a faded university hoodie, and she looked more at home, more real, than anyone ever had in this space. "They look like little diamonds, don't they?" Lena said quietly, not turning around. "The snowflakes against the lights." Ilara came to stand beside her, following her gaze. She had always seen weather as a logistical problem, flight delays, transportation issues. She had never simply watched the snow. "I suppose they do," she replied, her voice quiet. They stood in silence for a long moment, two women from different worlds, united by a simple, beautiful phenomenon. The digital clock on the oven shifted from 11:59 p.m. to 12 a.m. Christmas Day. "Merry Christmas, Ms. Vance," Lena said softly. The words landed in the quiet room with a profound weight. "Merry Christmas, Lena," Ilara responded, and for the first time in over a decade, the phrase didn't taste like ash in her mouth. They migrated back to the living room, the tension of host and guest finally dissolving into the quiet understanding of two people sharing a strange, unique moment in time. Lena, emboldened by the late hour and the unusual circumstances, began to ask gentle, curious questions not about business or money, but about the art on the walls, the books on the shelves. Ilara found herself answering, at first with brief, practiced responses, but then with more depth. She spoke of the architect who designed the building, of the artist whose painting hung over the fireplace. She even found herself pointing to a small, framed black and white photograph on a high shelf, a picture of her and her parents, taken on a long ago summer day. She didn't tell the whole story, the story of the car accident that took them just a year after that photo was taken. She didn't speak of the scholarships, the relentless climb, the using of grief as fuel until there was no fuel left. But she looked at the photograph, and Lena followed her gaze, and a deep, unspoken understanding passed between them. Lena didn't offer pity or empty condolences. She simply nodded, her eyes holding a quiet empathy that asked for nothing in return. In that shared silence, Ilara felt the final, frozen parts of her begin to thaw. The carefully constructed dam around her memories began to leak, not as a painful flood, but as a gentle, melancholic release. She remembered the good things, the smell of her mother's perfume, the sound of her father's laughter. The memories no longer felt like shards of glass, but like cherished, if distant, treasures. This stranger, with her pasta ornament and her homemade stew, had not fixed her. But she had held up a mirror, allowing Alara to see the reflection of the woman she had been before the armor, and in doing so, had shown her that woman might still exist somewhere beneath the steel and ice. Alara awoke on Christmas morning to a silence that was, once again, different. It was not the hollow silence of isolation, but the peaceful, resting silence of a shared space. Sunlight, bright and clear, streamed through the windows, glinting off the fresh snow that blanketed the city. For a moment, she lay still, disoriented by the unfamiliar feeling in her chest. It wasn't happiness, not exactly. It was something quieter, more fundamental, a sense of peace. She emerged from her room to find the penthouse empty, but subtly altered. The guest room door was open, the bed made with a precision that spoke of a desire to leave no trace. On the kitchen counter, next to the expensive espresso machine, was a note written on a piece of scrap paper. The handwriting was neat and looping. "Ms. Vance, the tow truck came. Thank you for everything. More than you know. I hope you have a peaceful Christmas. Lena. P.S. Your tree looks perfect."